Hey guys, Sax here, back with another coaching session. This week we got the Prophecy Dungeon. This is my solo flawless. Uploaded this earlier in the week, and so that's had time to get out there. So maybe you've seen that. But here we're gonna break it down, and this has a special place in my heart because we're heading into Rite of the Nine, and there's a lot of people who've done Prophecy. It's been in the game for a very long time. However, there's a lot of people who maybe they've not challenged themselves, maybe they've not pushed themselves to do this in a solo setting or to really understand what's happening. But when we get contest mode, we're going to really have to have a deep understanding of what's happening in the dungeon. So let's talk about it today. Got some new technology, got some ways to circle and highlight some things on the screen for you guys. So if you're not familiar, when you pop into Prophecy, you'll immediately start and you are in this space here. Now, I was doing a lot of these runs. I had some weird technical issues various times, so I was kind of speeding through. However, I do want to talk about one of the mechanics here, and then we'll talk about it when we get into the first encounter. So you'll see in this space here that you have two different areas. You have an area that's lit up in the light towards the left-hand side of the screen, and then you have this whole area here which is in the dark. You will see on your screen, you can kind of see it in this instance here, where there's a bit of a like shadowy glow around the bottom of the screen, and I'll point out the light glow later on. But when you kill certain enemies, they are taken knights in this encounter or in this dungeon in general. Depending on where you are in the room, you're going to have dark or light motes drop when you kill those enemies. If you're staying in the dark, you see the dark aura around the bottom of your screen, you'll get dark motes. And the exact opposite. If you're in the light and you kill, you'll get the light aura. This is a little buggy. It's not always the most intuitive, just something to remember. But you're going to see I do a little thing here where I go and I have Lion Rampants on with a sword. I'm just going straight up this. This is something you can do. You could do this with a Strand Grapple. You could do this with Heat Rises on a Warlock. This is something that I've ran this enough. I know you can do this and you can kind of skip through. So we're going to jump straight in now to the first encounter. So let's take a look here. I'm actually going to see if I can back this just a little bit. When I come in, you'll see we have these like semicircle, half shell type pieces here. You can see this has a black aura coming off of it. And then we have these light, there's another dark one here. You can't see it directly on the screen. However, these are points that you need to cleanse. How you do that is you collect 5 of the correlating motes. So obviously with the whites, you would use white motes, and the dark, you would use dark motes. Or for the black places to cleanse, you would use the black motes. And so Rally Banner here, go ahead and if you do come over this direction like I did with the sword swinging, just make sure you take a wide berth with that. Because if you come in contact with this Tolan ball here, it will start the encounter. So let's take a look here briefly. We're going to take a look here. I had many attempts at this, and you'll see I'm just starting to farm my Dark Transcendent energy here. I know the spawn points for these enemies, and you can see these ads here. Let's see. So these enemies right here, these are the ones that you're going to kill and get the motes to drop from. So let's see. I'm standing firmly in the dark here, and you will see I kill 2 of them in one swing, and I get the dark motes. So I'm going up, and I'm just hitting either on controller, it'd be right trigger. On mouse keyboard, it's just left click. So remember, there are 2 of these auras for each of the colors, and there are going to be 3 of the knights that spawn in for each round. Say you kill all 3 knights, 3 more will spawn in, but until all 3 of them die, they will not spawn back in. So I have cleansed the 2. Essentially, I picked up 5 dark motes first time, cleansed the first one, picked up another 5 dark motes, cleanse the second one, and now I'm done with dark motes. So now when I kill the knights, I want to stand firmly in the light. So here we go, and you can see now I have 5 light modes. It says on this left-hand side there, so you can see it. See if I can get this scrolled here. It says light modes ×3, and then when you push it forward, and when I pick these up, you'll see it flips there to light modes maxed. So let's go ahead and continue on here. I'm gonna pick up 5 more. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind before you start the damage phase, you want to make sure you clear a lot of these enemies out, because they will still be present during the damage phase. There's various points in different dungeons where you start the damage phase and then enemies either despawn or they change in some manner. They do not in this encounter here, they do not change. So you want to make sure that you take care of any enemies, take care of additional knights that you can, so that you're prepared. However, one thing I will say, if you're running a build similar to what I'm doing, which has Syntheseps on my class item, you benefit from having more enemies around. Now, they're not going to be around the whole time, because you're probably going to kill them with whether it's a Consecration Slam or whatever you're running, but you would get that benefit initially. So here, I hop up here, I do a quick loadout swap to have Tractor Cannon on. Now, you could just have Tractor Cannon on from the beginning, and that would be advisable. So if you're doing this in a solo instance, that's going to help you speed up this encounter. If you're doing this in a team, having someone with Tractor Cannon or maybe a tether, something of that sort, really get that debuff. This boss doesn't have that much health. What it does have is a big shield that's really annoying to fight around. So you can see I get Tractor Cannon on. And then I really wanted to make sure that I could get that damage there directly on the boss and not get messed up by the shield. Now, contextually for this here, what was going through my mind as I'm playing is I have done this encounter multiple times, not because I was struggling with this encounter, but there were various points, whether it was coming up with different things for the boss phase, the final boss phase, or just weird little bugs that I ran into. You know, I had done this a few times. It probably took me about 8 or 9 attempts to get through solo flawless. I had got to various points, and whether it was just being reckless or something of that sort. So you'll see a little bit of hesitancy at times, just because I want to make sure I do it right, because I was ready to be done with this. So, and that actually manifests in this run by not one phasing this boss here. Very, very easy solo one phase if you're using the right build. You can even see here I'm utilizing the seasonal benefit of having those orbs from the Path of Ambition. Some people in the community are calling those Mickey orbs because they make activity so easy. If you don't know, the Ambition orbs, when you pick them up, they give you double damage for 15 seconds. So here I'm gonna scoot ahead here, because basically you just do the exact same thing. You cleanse 4. Let's get here. Okay, starting the damage phase. I get a Mickey orb, Tractor Cannon, and he's gone. You can see I hit 9s across the board there. So that is all for the first encounter. Not a very difficult encounter mechanically, but what I will say is it's fairly easy to become overrun. And so you really want to try to stay out of line of sight of the boss. You want to try to stay out of line of sight of the knights. They will aggro you at times and kind of chase you down. So just keep moving. If you have a way to go invis, or you have a way to do heavy ag clear, that's great. So let's talk about this next encounter, or this next portion rather. This isn't really an encounter, but this is called the Wasteland. You are going across a variety of areas out here. Now, the first one is kind of tough. You've got to find where the blights are. It's gonna be 3 blights, as you can see up there. You're moving through. There's invisible big minotaurs that are kind of roaming the Wasteland, and then on each of these locations, there's going to be these sets of 3 hobgoblins that are kind of up here. So let's take a look. So you can see I immediately want to take care of them. There's another one here that I'm going to take care of. and then there's another one right there. Once those guys are gone, we're in a pretty good place. Just got to take care of the ads, and then you got to clear the 3 blights. You have to do this 3 times when you're in the Wasteland this first time. Once you clear these blights, you interact with Toland in the middle, and you really want to pay attention to which way Toland goes, because even in some of my runs, I got turned around out here. Even though I've done this dungeon hundreds of times, it's just easy when you don't come back to kind of get turned around if you don't see where he's coming from or where he's heading. If you don't catch it, you can always just find the next set of blights, but you'll have to roam around, and it just takes time. So that is the extent of it. Just take care of the hobgoblins, do all that stuff. So this is the very end. This is my last Toland ball here. This is round 3. And then we're going to head into what is known as the cube room, or Hexahedron is the actual name of the encounter. So let's talk about this encounter. But before we do that, if you enjoy this content, maybe you've seen some of my short quick tip videos for Ghosts of the Deep, different dungeons like that. Would you like and subscribe? Maybe share with your fire team, and check out the Forced to Wipe website. It's in the link below. It's also on my channel page if you need to find that, for all the dungeon and raid resources you can need. Would love to connect with you in that way and share those resources with you. So here we are, Hexahedron encounter. Good old cube room. So for this encounter, what the goal of this is you are going to need to kill 2 hobgoblins that are snipers from above. And as you do that, let's see here. So you can see them on this encounter here. They are perched up above. So what you'll find is at the beginning of the encounter, you can see here, this is where the hobgoblins are spawning in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look. You can see that there are some various points around the room that are up on these sides where the Toland ball can spawn. And what you want to do is you want to identify as fast as possible where those locations are. And so you can see, I was looking around and I spot, okay, here is where Toland is. He is above me, right there. And then we're going to go and do, I can see that before I get blinded, I can see that it's a light cleanse below that. So what that means is I need to pick up 5 light motes and cleanse under where Toland is. So I'm going to kill these hobgoblins. As soon as I do, it will spawn in 1 knight per hobgoblin you kill. So I'm going to stand in the light. And again, like I said earlier, I was going to point this out. You can see there's a light aura on the bottom of my screen here. Three light motes. Now, when you kill that knight, it will respawn the hobgoblin that was tied to it. So they are kind of companion enemies. So you kill one, the other spawns, and then vice versa. So it's not a situation like the first encounter where you kill the knights and then you have to kill all the knights for something to happen. This is a one and situation. So I get the rest of these motes. And again, this is just a rinse and repeat situation, but let's talk about some of the more dangerous things before we move on. So this portion right here, when you dunk and cleanse, you get this pool of light in the middle of the room that's going to take you towards the ceiling. And then what it's going to do is it's going to shift the room, and essentially it's going to light up with a symbol on that central cube. So let's watch this. The room's going to rotate here. And now you have a new floor. The main things you want to look out for here are exactly what you were just seeing. This pit of death. There are various pits of death in various rooms. Some of them are tricky. You can actually go down into them. There is no reason to go down there ever. Just some of them are false pits where you'll think you're gonna die and you'll actually land on something and you can come up. There's no reason to go down there. You want to avoid that at all costs. So let's talk mechanically what you're doing every time. So you come into the room, rally to the flag, look at the 4 walls that are closing you in the room, identify where Toland is. If you see him, you're gonna look down and find which light or which plate color you need to cleanse. It's either gonna be white or black for light or dark. After that, you're gonna kill the hobgoblins that are flanking around the room. When you kill the hobgoblins, you are gonna spawn in a taken knight. Remember, let's say it was light that was on the plate under Tolan. You're gonna move to stand in the light. You're gonna kill the knights. You're gonna pick up 5 motes. You're gonna go to that plate and cleanse. Now, one of the more risky portions of this, especially when you do this solo, is the time between picking up the mote and dunking. So I want to show you this here. Let's see if I have. So I'm making dark in this moment. And what you'll find is these guys are sniping at me. And you see, like, I'm kind of got turned around a bit, and then I'm going to take some damage here. And I tuck away. I'm like, hey, I need to get away for a second, heal up. It is also, before you go up this little area here, it's really good to know where the hobgoblins are. And I even fall more on the side of taking out the hobgoblins and letting there just stay knights, because the enemies will despawn. However, the sniper shots can hurt a lot, whereas the knight fire isn't necessarily going to chase you upwards as you get taken out. So the last thing I will say about this room and this encounter is there are occasionally times where you will see that Toland is not at any of the locations. So the 4 walls here, when you look up at them, you don't see Toland. All that means is you just need to choose one of the walls, choose one of the colors. Oftentimes I'll look at the room and see what there's more abundance of. If there's more abundance of light, then I just choose light. If there's more abundance of dark, I just choose the dark. You make the motes, you go dunk there. So the nature of the fact that there are 6 faces on the cube, and depending on how the encounter rotates and you do that, sometimes it will double back to a location it's had before. And there's nothing you can do to prevent that. It's kind of an RNG thing. So let's go to the very end. There is a short boss damage phase at the very, very end of this, where these 2 taking Cabal enemies come out. They have no health, like basically no health at all. I would not worry about them. Main thing is there's other enemies that can spawn in the room. You want to make sure that you're not, you don't get overran or you don't accidentally fall into it. They're gone. Encounter over. So watch out for the snipers. Don't get overran when you're holding the moat. Just because you're not able to defend yourself, you can always click your right trigger or your left click on your mouse to just activate the moat, and then you can pick up more. Like if you get in a bad situation, do that. Should be just fine. All right, now we're getting to one of the more fun parts here. This is the Rainbow Road. So you go back through the Wasteland. You'll chase the boss down. It's pretty hard to get lost at this part. On the skimmer. Here is a part that is a very novel thing, but for me, it's one of my lesser favorite parts of this dungeon, especially doing a solo flawless, just because it kind of gives you this respite. Similar feeling to when you do Deepstone Crypt and you kind of do the space encounter, you're going out the spacewalk. However, for this part, it can be surprisingly tricky at various parts if you try to stay on the ribbon the entire time. And so I do it a variety of ways. You can see these platforms that some of these snipers are on. They kind of walk down, and so you don't have to step on the ribbon hardly at all to actually make it to the bottom. Now that's a slow and steady approach. Sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes if I'm like, okay, I'm really going for flawless here, doing whatever. Early on in my runs, I did that when I really was, pushing. But you see right here, I almost fall. I almost fail right there. Just because I was kind of getting lackadaisical with it and I know what I'm doing. Take your time in this encounter. Even though this is not a looted encounter, I view this as an actual kind of like puzzle encounter, especially if you're not very familiar with it. So you're just going through here. You're going to move down. I'll show you the entire path that I take. So I end up going up from this point because you can see you can see over here to the side that there's this weird section where the ribbon turns over itself. And then there's a weird thing where you kind of have to like bail on this ribbon and you move over to this one. For a flawless run, I would not really suggest that if you're worried about it. Now, let me get this out of the way. If you're very experienced with Prophecy, you're probably not even getting on the ribbon road. You're probably, you know, you might be on Warlock, you might be well skating, you might be on Hunter, you might be shatter skating, you might be on Lion Rampant's Titan with catapult lift and just sword flying the entire way. I have done that at various times, but I just want to show this practically for beginners and for people who are trying to dip their toe into solo content. So I'm gonna get rid of this enemy here, and then you can go up these little stairwells and then these buildings, and then you'll see the back half of this. I actually utilize those platforms I was discussing earlier. There's gonna be some enemies that spawn. I wouldn't linger too long trying to do. I do kind of full send it here. You can step down. Just, you know, you can just lily pad, step down if you want to. Going through here, come right out the other side. You'll see there, and you're trying to make your way to this little twisty portion here. So if you ever have a confusion on what you're doing, this platform down here, there's like a grav lift type situation where you get down here, or you kind of get in this space between where this starts and this area. It will kind of take you up. What I found is it seems like they coded this based on you being on a sparrow. They expect that you're going to. So there's a little bit of weirdness that can happen with if you're there just on foot. So just be mindful of that. You can pull out your sparrow when you get down there, and I found that that's pretty helpful for getting it to lift you. Now sometimes you just get down there and it just takes you immediately, so your you know, your experience may vary. Let me take this moment just one more time as I'm going down here. You know, if you're still here, thank you. Would you like, subscribe to the channel, trying to grow it out, maybe even join the Discord. We're joining, you can do bit.ly/sax-discord. Coming here, yep, you see I get sucked up straight into the grav lift. I've had times, no lie, I've had times where enemies have come up there and they have killed me, because that was probably in the past when physics were still an issue that could just one-shot you. Watch out for these enemies here. They're not really a threat, but they are there, just so you know. And you're to the boss room. So here you are. So I chose to, I went through this process and I went through looking at what are we doing damage wise? Are we doing arc? Are we doing prismatic? I tried both. Actually I had pretty good results with both, but I found that in this season, arc with Queenbreaker, having the buffs that it has gives me the option. So let's take a look here at what this encounter holds. So we are in a triangular room, and so I'll kind of draw it out for us. We're in a triangle room, and then we're going to have these 3 dunk points in the corners, and then you'll see that there's going to be a boss enemy that will kind of be outside of the triangle in these corners. So what you need to do is you need to figure out if these are black or white. And then once we know, that will be the type of motes that we generate. There will be 2 knights that spawn. In this first initial room, there's going to be 1 knight here, and there's going to be 1 knight over here. And then you can see there's like a middle triangle, so that kind of gives you a frame of reference. So what you'll do, you will see, if you go, let me get rid of this real quick. If you go in here and you take a look, you can see right back there, it already shows black. Unfortunately, when you start the encounter, when you go through this Tolan orb that's right here, those will shift. So they could come back the same color, but it's good chances that they're going to change here. So let's take a look here. This first portion of the encounter is not very different from the other 2 encounters, where you're killing knights, picking up the emotes, and then you're dunking them on locations. But you can see these like remnants of the bosses, or these echoes. The Kell Echo is the name of the boss, but these echoes of the Kell Echo. So I've taken a look here. I can see this one right here is a dark plate. I've made light moats. I can see that this one behind here is a dark plate that's over here. So I must have seen that the third plate is a light. And really, yes, I did. Yep, so behind me, the third plate was a light. And so there's really no rhyme or reason to what you do. Now, I almost make a mistake here. So let's move back just a tiny bit here. When you dunk these modes, what's going to happen is directly on this portion here, there is going to be a big old ogre that will spawn. Do not forget about this ogre. This ogre will spawn in whether you want it or not, whether you're looking there or not, and he's going to wreck your day. Now, if you watch this, you'll see, I believe in this footage, you can see immediately I'm like, okay, I need two dark, or I need to make two dark modes, or as far as like 2 sets of 5 dark modes. And then that ogre starts destroying me from behind. So I'm like, oh crap, I got to take care of this. I usually don't use heavy on those, but I was like, nope, I'm not going to let that happen. Thankfully, I got those bullets directly back. So I take care of this, pick up the 5 dark motes, and then I'm going to go here. And then I believe I do a better job with the ogre this time around. Drop this here, find cover where you can. I wanted to heal up, get that going a little bit. There we go. So once the ogre's down, the ogre's down. You don't really have to worry about it anymore. And then that kind of closes off the corner. So the process is identify the color, kill the knights in the area, pick up 5 motes of the correct color, go dunk, kill the ogre, then you're done with the corner. And you'll actually see, so since I was already done with this portion, you can see the boss is no longer there because I killed the ogre, or I dunked on the plate, killed the ogre. The boss moves away from there. So just good to know. It's going to be more hectic at the beginning, and then it's going to get easier and easier to stand this room as you're doing it. So I got one more here, trying to generate dark motes. Got 3 of them. Now, mind you, these knights will stop spawning once you dunk on the 3rd plate. So if you need to generate ammo or anything of that sort, that was a great case where I thought I was in the dark, and I guess I wasn't. It's a great example of that. I don't think I've had that yet in this run, but I talked about it earlier. See, it generated light modes. Just happens. So you can see I have a dark motes timer over here. Nothing happens if those dark motes expire other than you just got to pick up, you know, any that you lose. So I'm going to go ahead and generate. There's the dark motes. Get dark motes max. And we're going to go dunk. And then we're going to have an ogre spawn. So I'm going here to just set up shop. Be ready for it. My melee did not proc on first button press there for whatever reason. I remember wondering what was happening. So right now I'm trying to use this with attrition orbs, this multi-mock, to generate orbs, and then just my arc siphon. I want to have orbs for this encounter, or for the damage phase here. And then we're going to go straight down here. So let's talk damage phase. I want to break this down. So if you're familiar with this damage phase, you already know what's going to happen here. But I'm going to describe this and I'm going to explain this for beginners so we have concept of what's going to happen. So I'm actually going to draw this out here. So what we're going to have is we're going to drop in, let's say this is spawn, and then we're going to have a variety of these rectangular platforms. And then let's say that this is the end area. So we're going to have a variety of these rectangular platforms that we will need to navigate to get to the end. This is a very long vertical damage phase. The boss is going to spawn somewhere in the middle of the arena, and then there's going to be hobgoblin snipers that will spawn at various points. This is not to scale. This drawing here is not to scale. However, what's going to happen is if you have too much distance between you and the boss, you will get what's known as dark entropy. And that will, if that hits 11 stacks, so basically you can get up to dark entropy times 10. But if you have times 10 long enough where you would gain another stack, you will die. So you need to manage this debuff. It's going to be, I'm going to get rid of the map here. It's going to be at the top of your screen. You will see up at the top where your health bar is, it will be written right here, and you'll be able to identify that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this is, and I'll probably stop it a couple of times, and then what I'll do is I'll play back the full damage phase. Okay, so you can see this arena here. We have all of the rectangular platforms. You can see the boss sitting in the middle. You're coming here. Now, one last thing about this boss, and you'll see it here in just a moment. He throws these, you can kind of see it here, this like attack, which it doesn't really do damage to you, but it's almost like he's throwing a portal at you, which will teleport you away from him. So if you're trying to get down, getting a little bit of extra boss damage in here, but I'm going to quickly move towards the end here and get rid of the hobgoblins. Don't get sniped out. It's very easy to get hit by the boss and then get hit by a 1-2 punch of the hobgoblins. So again, I get teleported. That was on me. I kind of set up shop and didn't do that. So the boss, he will stay in those two locations. So he does one there, and then he comes to this final location here. Seems like it's a pretty short time on that last platform there. When you use your super, if you're on Golden Gun or you're on Nova, something like that, I would say just use it early. But for me, I keep my Thunder Crash because there are times where maybe I got teleported when I didn't think so. The game said that it took me like it did earlier in this boss damage phase, and I actually needed to use my Thunder Crash to get back close enough to him so I didn't wipe. That's why I hold on to it till the end typically, unless I think I'm going to kill. But just something to keep mindful of. So he teleports. Usually he doesn't immediately send a portal out. However, I have had it happen before where I go to Thunder Crash him and he last second throws a portal out and it hits me right before I hit him. So you want to make sure, and you'll see I kind of even take like a wide berth around him to make sure he doesn't. And then I'm just going to set up shop. I'm getting kind of in his face because I want to be by this bolt charge. I want to be by the rally banner. And then once you're out of heavy, back away. There's no reason to die at this point, if that makes sense. So let's go back. I want to play through that. Oh, I went a little too far there. Let's play through the entire damage phase here so you guys can see this. And then I'll skip ahead for the final boss damage portion, and we can take a look at that. So sidestep the portal, getting more shots in. Just whiffed. There's always optimizations. Every time I watch back footage of myself playing, I'm like, man, I could have done that better. Wish I would have. So I know the boss is moving forward here. Can take out the other hobgoblins. Just keep moving. It's pretty risky to get on the same platform the boss is. You know, classic Destiny. They have stomp mechanics. They have all that stuff. So he can send you flying off. And he throws his portal out. So if you're right in his face, it's going to be nearly impossible to dodge that portal attack. See, I tried to dodge it right there, and I don't agree with that. I don't agree that I was within the bounds, but seems like there's kind of a wide range for that. So keeping an eye on dark entropy. I got up to ×5 right there. Gonna drop it down. Thankfully, it drops off pretty quickly. So I move forward. Ideal situation would have been I get to this point here, and then I'm able to just full send it on damage while he's here, and then Thunder Crash him immediately and have that. Not this, where I get teleported. Make sure you get your Thunder Crash off or whatever your damage super is. And then get out of there. So pretty long pretty lengthy damage phase, and you can kind of tell how far you are based on where the boss location is. So let's skip forward now. You can see I'm in a different room, same idea, triangular shape, got different things. You're gonna do the exact same thing. You're gonna kill the knights, identify what colors you need, dunk those colors, kill the ogres, and you'll go. Only thing you may need to do is farm ammo. That's one thing. So I would say if you need to farm ammo, try to leave up one of the knights. Maybe don't do the last portion, just so that you have some larger enemies that you can take out. All right, so I go in here, I get a little bit of heavy. I don't get a ton, but I feel confident that I have enough, especially with the Thunder Crash, as long as I can do it. So you can see I spawned in the last ogre. Just scooping up everything I can find. I was even seeing if I can get that orb closer, so I could. Maybe I could drop down. It takes a long time to drop down the portal. I was locked in though. I knew I had it here, so I was feeling pretty confident here. I mean, if you want to optimize even more, you might shoot the boss with a different gun to begin with, just so it turns around, so you make sure you hit all your shots. Take care of the hobgoblins real quick. Don't want to die this far to them. I see that the boss throws its portal. And I say, you know what? Let's just be done. Throws it. I know he's not going to do it before he can get away. Thunder Crash. Now that's a little risky. I will admit, it's a little risky to do that. I would suggest seeing him firmly on the ground, wherever he's standing. The last thing, don't just go run and do all that, because people have died due to this little teleport mechanic going into the final area. So it took me, you could do this under 30 minutes very easily. You could probably do it faster. You could do it faster than me. Once again, if you're still here, thank you very much for your support. I hope you're enjoying this content, the long, the short content, all that stuff. Like, subscribe. Thank you very much. Until next time, have a great day.